Hello friends, myself Nitin Pandya from Padmakala Management Service. This is one of our additional digital video on giving understanding about OECD requirements to our clients to meet the competitive requirement of ethical sourcing and meeting the various corporate clients requirements of ethical sourcing. There is a new requirement started for gem and jewelry sector, including the gold refining, gold melting sections and everyone, wherein they have to comply with the new financial obligation of OECD ethical sourcing. Before we start on the discussion on the OECD presentation, I would like to take you little back with the history of why the financial requirements and financial compliances started in industry. Now I'm taking you little back to the history so that you can correlate each and every event linked to OECD requirements. So first of all, the financial compliances initiated or forced by the global customers and global countries for the gem and jewelry sector is after 9/11. Friends, you guys will be aware about that there was a huge attack in US Twin Tower on 9/11, which was done by an terrorist group, Islamic terrorist group. After that, there were a lot of financial investigations, a lot of intelligence units have globally searched who are the terrorists, where they come from, what they do, how they get the funds and all that. During that investigation, the lot of information came out, which insisted that there is a need of huge financial compliances for a gem and jewelry sector, only with the reason of being involved in a precious metals. Let it be a diamond, let it be a gold, platinum, all silver. Any precious metals, if you are dealing with, you are prone to be used by terrorists for money laundering. So globally, the companies have started complying with the line laws. In US first, they have started with the US Patriot Act. In India, we had Money Laundering Act 2002. In Europe, again the FATF 40 requirements were given, which is again leading to a requirement of financial compliances globally. So the standard, the requirement brought by the customers, the diamond suppliers, the jewelry supplier customers, the gold bullion exchange companies, LBMAs, and everyone started with the requirement of AML-CFT. AML-CFT is Anti-Money Laundering, Combat Finance and Terrorism. So AML-CFT globally, widely, people started with FATF 40 recommendations and 5 steps. So those 5 steps were KYC, know your customer, know your counterparty, know your suppliers who are dealing with you for a precious metals. The intent was know your customer is to see whether the customer or the supplier are financially compliant. The sources of fund is ethical, not being involved in terrorism funding, money laundering, hawalas or anything. So that we started with KYC, wherein we do the legal due diligence of the company and of the directors involved or the promoters involved in the organization. That was the first step. Second step, we used to appoint the compliance officer who is going to do ongoing monitoring of financial transactions with respect to remittance, with respect to receipts, with respect to mode of payment. Even financial transactions up to a certain amount were restricted globally by all countries. US started with 10,000 US dollars. Europe started with 50,000 euros. Currently now restricted to 3,000 euros. India started with a policy of 50,000 and 1 lakh for buying gold in bar form or a jewelry form, 2 lakh and 5 lakh. Likewise, globally everywhere there was a restriction on financial transactions. All bank routed transactions, no exchange transactions are allowed, authorized. So this compliances were doing as a step 3 by the compliance officer. Financial auditors were given shouldered the responsibility of doing the annual audit. Step 5 was to provide training and awareness to all suppliers and the customers who are involved in buying an activity. So this was money laundering AML-CFT requirement, which we are doing since 2001, 2002. Globally in all our companies, globally across all our units, operations, whether it be factory, offices, trading units, whatever, or even a retail outlet, we are doing it. Then in 2003, there was again an investigation reports which trigger that lot of fake movement of rough diamonds are taking place, which is again leaded to a process requirement. So there is a place called Kimberley where all mines, diamond mines were gathered, and they had started with a process called KPCS, Kimberley Process Certification System. The objective is again to, link each and every movement of the rough diamond and ensure that, chain box blockchain method to identify the fake movement of rough diamonds, so that the unwanted people who are not in trade using diamonds as one of the mode of transferring funds from one nation to another nation can be blocked, can be avoided, or can be easily identified, and actions can be taken on that. So this was about KPCS. Now when I'm into a gold diamond jewelry business, for me KPCS doesn't matter, but yes, I have to give a statement of warranties to my customer, that is SOW, wherein I say the diamond herein are from legitimate resources, not involved in funding conflict as per United Nations resolution, blah 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 blah, which I have to give to all my customers. Again, this was linked to financing terrorism. It again there was linked to fake movement of parcels. So wherein even jewelries were used to a certain extent. So we are giving that warranties to our customer to confirm that we are compliant with the ethical supply of diamond jewelry, right from sourcing head office to a jewelry retail outlet, wherein I am delivering all goods to my customers. Then by doing all this, by now we are clear with financial compliance, we are clear with the sourcing of diamond compliances, but somewhere the gold part was missing. So in last couple of years, US has come up with a certain sections on certain region of Zimbabwe, Democratic Republic of Congo. There are Marango regions from which they don't want gold origin to come from. So whether you are supplying an electronic item, whether you are supplying any jewelry to them, you have to give a declaration that it is free from DRC. As there was a US Parliament, the sanctions has been let down to all listed companies. So all your big buyers started asking, you have to make sure your gold is DRC free, conflict free. So then the era come to investigate the origin of the gold. So then you have to audit, review and confirm that entire supply chain of your gold is conflict free. There the era started with the requirement of some systems. That system was launched is called OECD, Organization of Economic Community Development. They have come up with a 5-step framework. So we are going to talk today on those 5-step framework. What does it say? The OECD first step says you have to establish a policy and a procedure to identify possible point of contamination, possible point of risk in your supply chain, and you have to identify ways and means to improve those areas or ways and means to eliminate those risk elements. For an example, let's take a typical example of a gold jewelry manufacturing company. Roughly 94 to 95% of their gold requirement is sourced either from a refiner or a bank or an institution which can easily correlate the supply of bars, crucibles, granules to refinery. So here in this standard, what the standard wants us to comply with, in step 1, first you have to identify what is my position in entire supply chain. So to make it very simple, they have made supply chain into 3 categories. Either the topmost supplier is miner, who is mining the gold doré and supplying to the refiners. So refiners is a second segment, and third segment is a downstream who buys from a refiners and it goes to a jewelry manufacturing company or a gold article processing companies, and in turn it goes to a retailer. Now as a gold jewelry manufacturing company, as we are taking example of a jewelry manufacturing company, my 94 to 95% of the supply roughly are either from refiners or a bank or a financial institutes where I can easily correlate or can easily trace to upstream. So as a gold jewelry manufacturing company, I have to talk to my supplier, I have to engage with my suppliers and make sure whatever I buy is ethically sourced. Now how do I do it? So I have to first make a list of all my suppliers, identify suppliers and their position in supply chain, So in that case, my refiner can always trace back to a miner, and my refiner has to comply with ethical sourcing compliances. Now, what are the ethical sourcing compliance globally accepted? RMI standard, Responsible Mining Initiative, Dubai DMCC Metal Commodity Requirements, RJC COC, RJC COP compliance. So these are the internationally widely accepted standards which an organization, mining company is compliant, refining or a mining company is compliant. I can easily buy that because that will ensure me the gold is not sourced from a conflict affected area. Likewise, I have to also identify which are my other article suppliers. In jewelry industry, as you know, we have a lot of findings to buy, and findings are normally supplied by a small supply chain manufacturer who will be somewhere be positioned in the downstream company who is providing jewelry articles like findings, birds, earring, locks, links. Those suppliers would be again buying gold from either from a bank, from a refinery, or from an open market based on his buying capability. So what I need to do is, when I make a list of my suppliers, I have to talk to my each suppliers and try to identify who is the upstream supply to him. And if they are getting it upstream from a bank, my life is easy. I have to ask him, okay, can you check with your bank and can you confirm which are the refineries from which the bank is buying from? In case my supplier is not buying from a bank, he is buying from an open market or from a merchant gold exporter or a merchant or government approved merchant, gold merchant, then again I have to sit with him, make him understand with the requirement, and then I have to do an engagement activity. So for the first step is I have to identify my suppliers, I have to identify their position in supply chain, and I have to identify what is the bare minimum records I will need from each category of my supplier. Once I know what I need from my supplier, second step is I have to start communicating with them. This is basically a first step requirement only, but the step to A, B, I can say like that. A is I'll make a list, B I'll identify their position, C I'll identify what records I can buy from them, D I'll start giving training, communications, presentations, understanding, so that they understand my upcoming requirements, so that I can take my supplier change in the drive of ethical sourcing, so that together we can grow. So, and then I have to make my policies publicly available, communicated to all my customers, all my suppliers, and I have to convince my supplier to adopt ethical sourcing policy and implement at their level in their organization, and they have to also follow this system in a gradual way. Lastly, I have to appoint an internal compliance officer, so who will ensure day-to-day compliance of OECD in my organization. Step 2. What is a step 2? Step 2 is basically an ongoing monitoring of my compliances. So my compliance officer has to be shoulder the responsibility of ensuring ongoing compliances with me, my each category of the supplier based on their position, based on their capability to provide upstream information, to give me a confidence that it is ethically been sourced and there is not been a conflict. So as I have identified in step 1 my policy procedure, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, on those parameters he has to run through and ensure each and every transaction is scanned, reviewed, analyzed, approved, and then only the material is accepted. If they are not meeting my policy requirements, if they are not meeting my minimum document requirements, the step 3 will be triggered. Step 3 is red flag, wherein my compliance officer will endorse the such queries into a red flag register, communicate to my directors, my management, take their approval, call supplier, have a meeting with supplier, make him understand with the issues, scenarios, and engage with the supplier to finally work on the improvement actions. You give some time to a supplier, 2 months, 3 months, you identify what is tolerable, what is not tolerable. That is a risk management policy. Based on my step 2, which is an ongoing monitoring, I'm switching over to wherever there is a gap, I'm taking it to my step 3, where I'll do a red flag raising and risk management and mitigation. cannot take appropriate action with my supplier, or supplier is not ready to improve, I have to take a decision, a hard decision of disengagement. But that has to be well announced, well communicated. So supplier should be given a sufficient time. There is no time frame of how much sufficient time to be given under step 3, but you might give it 3 months, 6 months, whatever you feel appropriate. It is the sense of the compliance officer, or what you can gauge whether there is really something is happening or not. This is a step 3. Now let me take you to the main areas where we take it, we call it as a step 3. Step 3 is mainly for a conflict affected areas, CHHR, CHARS, what we call it. Basically it is divided into 3 segments. The supply can be conflict due to local issues, like the mines from which the gold is coming, if it has got a human right violation issues. So that is one element, wherein the childs are abused, wherein the people are abused, they are not been paid salaries, they are not been paid wages, they have been asked to work on gun points or a bullet, threatening of death. Likewise, so that's a regional issues. Like we talk about Syria. Syria is currently having a burning issues. Would be also a region which will be a conflict affected area. Then there are certain human right violations like Marango region, Zimbabwe. Those areas would be quite difficult to manage with. Then there are certain areas which is managed by the militants, public, private militants, the government militants, who are again forcing people to work against their will, against any fund. So those are the conflict areas. Then there are certain regions wherein ASM is operating widely and not paying the local duties, taxes, royalties to the government. So again that metal is conflict. Even if the land where the mining activity was carried out is conflict free, but the route through which it is passing through before reaching to you, and if that route is conflict affected, where militants can get involved, material can be replaced, rechange, or some issues related to material, again can be classified as a conflict areas. Now how do I do as a compliance officer to know whether my metal or my doré which I am receiving, or my gold bar, or my granules what I am receiving is conflict free? So there are a lot of initiatives already been taken, a lot of informations are available globally. So you have to do e-search, you have to do e-compliance monitoring. There are a lot of groups. There is a group of electronic component manufacturing companies like Sony, Panasonic. Those companies already created a compliance group wherein they publish a lot of information about the mines and the refiners and the gold suppliers who are compliant or not compliant. Related information are published. There are the information about briberies being paid by those companies. So again you have to be alert and continuously doing an activity as a part of ongoing monitoring before accepting any loans or any supplies from these companies. Again there are structured way of information where we get, like RMI. If the mining company and the refining company is compliant to RMI, LBMA and other related social ethical compliances, then you are assured that they are not involved in conflict affected areas, they are not involved in supplying any conflict goods to you. So this is my due diligence process. So 2 and 3 is hand in hand. If my ongoing compliance is very strict, I'll be able to identify red flags. Moment I identify a red flags, I'll take a corrective action, preventive action with the suppliers, or I will engage with the suppliers to improve. If it doesn't improve, I can disengage. These are the basically critical step of entire OECD 5-step framework. Fourth step is I have to make sure that my OECD compliance is current. It is relevant to the industry practices, industry standards. It has been audited by an accredited audit agency. Now again, how I do it? So for that, if we are an RJC certified company, annually RJC accredited auditors will do a due diligence audit of your OECD policy. If you are an LBMA approved refiner, or if you are an LBMA approved supplier, again you will be audited by a third party agency to review your ongoing compliance monitor, to review your selection of approval procedures, to review your policy communication, to review your internal checks and balances. So again, there is a third party who is assuring you or giving you a confidence that your policies are appropriate. It might be possible by doing a stop 4, I'll be identified with some improvement areas. So again, I have to go back and review. So again, the OECD says You have to review the effectiveness, the currentness, and the requirement of OECD on an annual basis. So when you do an annual basis review, you know what is happening currently, what are the recent changes, whether those recent changes and recent challenges which are coming into market scenario for the compliances are being addressed. If not, you revise your policy, you republish your policy, you make it a live document available on your website or a server or a your Google Drive, whatever is possible, and you have to make sure the old copies, the old versions are removed, your suppliers are communicated. So this is an outcome of step 4. So wherein my third party is telling me to change and I am changing it, and there is an auto process by which every year I'll be reviewing it. After I do all this, step 5 is very simple. I have to report my OECD compliance status on my website. It should be publicly available. Now, for a smaller company, smaller jewelry manufacturing company somewhere in India, or a smaller jewelry manufacturing company somewhere in Europe, will say that I hardly have my website. How do I publish my policy globally? So in that case, you can always put a clause on your website saying that whenever the customer wants, you can share the OECD compliance report. For our companies who are listed on the various stock exchanges, it is going to be mandatory. In certain countries, it is already mandatory that all gold smelters, refiners, and gold merchants have to publish their annual OECD compliance report along with their audit reports, which they are already publishing. So this is all about OECD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have tried to explain you the best possible way. In case you need any further information, any training material or understanding, we can always contact us. The links have been always published on our YouTube channels. You can contact us on our website. Our website is www.padmakala.com. You can find our contacts and can get in touch with us. Thank you very much.